Hi everyone, here's the Book Chemist once again. Today I'm reviewing A Brief History of Seven Killings, yet another book that shines a light on the history of a country that I, very shamefully, know very little about. This is quite a big genre for me, this kind of book, and recently I read another awesome example of it, The Art of Losing by Alice Zeniter. That book comes very highly recommended by me. A Brief History of Seven Killings is a sprawling choral novel that tells the story of Jamaica, and especially of the impoverished neighborhood of West Kingston, between the 70s and the early 90s. It takes as its fulcrum a historical event, the attempted assassination of Bob Marley on the eve of his Smile Jamaica concert in December of 1976, and it departs from this event to convey a fictionalized treatment of this historical moment that mixes fact with speculation, myth and reality, and tries in this way to hint obliquely, in the way the best historical fiction can do, at the deeper truth of these historical events. In this way, the novel deals with the historical forces influencing Jamaica as a lesser known but still important theater of the Cold War, and as a crucial stage in the growth and in the expansion of drug trafficking cartels from South America to the Western world, especially the US. The epigraph captures this idea beautifully through a proverb, a Jamaican proverb that, like the best of proverbs, is this weird paradoxical object. It is on the surface very simple, almost self-evident, but it's also carved through with endless meanings and complexity. If it not go so, it go near so, meaning if things didn't go exactly as I'm saying, I can't be too far from the truth either. The choral aspect of the novel, the multiple, various perspectives that compose it, is both its fundamental and its most recognizable feature. In its acknowledgement at the end of the novel, James admits that as he started working on the piece, he had all these various perspectives, all these different takes on the story, but he struggled with it because he wasn't sure exactly whose story he was telling. Until it clicked and he realized that actually all these various perspectives already composed a novel, and he acknowledges his debt to William Faulkner in conceiving this. Throughout A Brief History of Seven Killings, then, we follow all these various characters whose voices are captured with a truly virtuosistic performance in fairly brief chapters dedicated to each of them, as we get to learn more about their lives, as we get to learn how their lives are connected, and as their lives all touch in one way or another on the singer, Bob Marley, this mythical figure that appears very rarely in the novel, only occasionally, but whose presence is nonetheless felt really on every single page, both as a historical person, as a great man and a great artist, and as something more, some kind of mythical figure, a mythical, some kind of legendary possibility, this possibility of peace, this prospect of peace for a poverty-ridden, oppressed and war-torn country. Brief History is certainly not an easy novel, although it's very funny, at times hilariously so, and it's action-packed like the best crime series out there. It's very long and very dense, and you have to really pay close attention to the personal story of each individual character to understand their relevance to the broader plot. The characters' stories jump very freely between the present and the past of the narrative, creating a narrative that is truly epic in its scope and that unfolds in a way that is certainly non-linear. Moreover, many of the Jamaican characters in the novel speak in their native patois, or at least, because I'm not versed enough in patois to speak confidently about it, they speak in an English that, to me, certainly looks very heavily influenced by Jamaican patois. This is certainly not an easy book to read as a non-native English speaker such as myself, although I would be curious to hear whether the native speakers among you found it similarly challenging. What I'll say about this is that the novel teaches you how to read it as you go through it, so that it becomes easier and easier to understand it as you progress through the narrative. And I'll also say that the patois seems to me fundamental to what the novel is trying to achieve. In a very similar way to the Spanish passages, the untranslated Spanish passages in Junot Díaz's The Brief Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde, one of my very favorite novels of all times. In both of these works, being exposed to this language is very much part of the experience, part of being exposed to the history and the culture of these Caribbean islands. And having to put in some work to decode this language seems really only fair, especially in today's world where most of us can really translate a foreign word or a foreign idiom very easily within a few seconds, if you have access to a smartphone or to a laptop. While it's certainly action-packed, as I said, like the best crime fiction, Brief History does not shy away from conveying the real horror of this violent world of drug commerce, how it keeps the oppressed under its thumb, how it warps the lives of all the people that come in touch with it. This is certainly not a light-hearted novel or one that uses its gang wars or its drug overlords to give the reader cheap thrills. It is at times extremely disturbing, and it certainly avoids one of the pitfalls of the gangster genre, which is to turn its anti-heroes into glamorous and really heroic figures. It reminded me in this a lot of the Italian TV series Gomorrah, which is a TV series, a crime series, that really makes a point of showing its criminal overlords in all of their pettiness, their stupidity, their greed. And in this certainly differs from other TV series of recent years. I'm thinking, for instance, of Netflix's Narcos, which are certainly entertaining and fun, but are much more cartoonish in their treatment of the criminal world. Brief History is also a very playful novel that reminds me of the way Thomas Pynchon uses various genres, sometimes even pulp genres, to talk about history. The narrative is conveyed through the lens of the spy story, the crime narrative, even the Western film. But this variety of genres, just like the variety of perspectives that you get in the novel, the variety of registers, they do not clash at all, but they come together, they complement each other, and they convey a truly three-dimensional, complex, and contradictory picture. The very useful list of characters that you get at the beginning of the novel is almost 4 pages long, and from what I've said so far, you can probably understand quite how ambitious a novel Brief History of 7 Killings is. All works that are so ambitious, that are so epic in scope, can never really be perfect. And if there's one element that I would flag in this sense, is that some of its perspectives and some of its characters felt a little out of focus to me at times. To put it differently, while certain characters, such as Nina Burgess or Alex Pierce, evolve throughout the story alongside the historical events in ways that are surprising, nourishing, engaging, some of the other characters feel like they simply drop off the page at a certain point in the narrative, or conversely, they feel like they crop up a little bit too late in the novel to contribute much to it. This takes very little away from a book that will reward anybody who's looking for a challenging but powerful story, a book to sink your teeth in and get lots out of. I'm really curious to hear what you thought of Brief History of 7 Killings, and especially I'm curious to hear how it compares to James' later fantasy novels. Black Leopard, Red Wolf, I think, is the first novel in his fantasy saga, which I understand is still ongoing, because I'm very curious to read those. Are they as challenging as Brief History? Do they strike a similar tone? Let me know if you've read them, and thanks as always for watching the review. Thanks especially to my patrons for supporting the YouTube channel, and bye everybody.